All right. All right. Welcome to the International Trombone Hang. Thank you so much for being here today. We got a great show for you, as they say in late night. But Ryan Miller is joining us from the Indianapolis Symphony. Ryan and I spent some time in graduate school together at Indiana University. We go back several years. I'm just so excited that he's going to be able to be here to share with us. As trombonists that are working in the industry, it's not every day that a trombonist can live in a place and say, you know what, I want to work here and just keep practicing and developing their skills and get a job there. Most of us work and practice, and then we have to kind of go wherever we get that job. But Ryan was fortunate enough to be able to land a job in the Indianapolis Symphony, and he does a lot of freelancing in the area. And he's been able to kind of carve that area out as his own home. And it is a testament to his work ethic, his intelligence, his creativity, and his productivity in the practice room. So I'm really excited that he's going to be able to share with us today. So as you all know, we'll all be muted for the session. If you have questions, you can either raise your hand or do the virtual hand raise or pop them in the chat. Dave and I will monitor the chat. We allow a vibrant use of the chat feature. So if you want to chat amongst yourselves, that's totally fine. If somebody you don't know puts a file and you can't recognize where it's from, we recommend not clicking on it and just checking with us to make sure it's legit. We've never had a problem here at the ITH, but that is just general good habits in the public Zoom world. We are going to be posting this session on our YouTube channel, as well as the web page off of my website. We'll be sharing information on Facebook. We share information on Instagram. So by all means, please, if you are on those social media platforms, please support and promote, as much as you feel comfortable doing, so that other trombonists and other students can just become aware of what we're trying to do here, which is share information and all get better for the sake of, a healthy trombone community. So without any further ado, Dave, am I missing anything?
Nope, all good.
Great. Sorry, I turned to look at you, but you're not actually there, and I couldn't see if you did anything. So, okay. All right, Ryan, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Jason and David, for having me. This is really cool. This is a very cool community. It's very cool to keep things going, when there's not much going on. So, first of all, I just want to describe my relationship with the warm-up. It's kind of funny to be asked to lead a warm-up class when I don't consider myself a big warm-up person, and I don't like to give myself a lot of time that, like, I don't want to be required to have a lot of time to get going. And so, and sort of connected with that, the things I see in other people's warm-ups that I don't understand or don't like are just sort of playing the same thing over and over again every day by rote. I would get totally bored doing that, and I think the best case scenario when you're doing that is you might happen to stumble upon some positive habit, and I'm not into stumbling, so every exercise that I'm doing has a purpose, and I'm very clear about what I want to get out of this exercise. What do I want my playing to gain from this exercise? And I want to get to that as quickly as I possibly can. I don't want to, get to it and then wallow in it for a while. I just want to get it, establish, a great habit, and then move on and establish a different great habit. That's my basic idea. So let me share my screen here. Hopefully you guys can see this now. So I have a couple of different sections that I have put together for this. The very first section, production, you can read this stuff for yourself, I think, but this is the really the core of the actual warm-up. So in a regular day, I'm not warming up, like actually warming up for any more than like 5 minutes maybe. So this is strictly speaking my warm-up, and then everything else is kind of maintenance or a specific type of practice. So let's get into it. How I'm going to structure this whole thing is we'll go through this warm-up. We might not do everything, And then later on, I have some practice tips and thoughts about freelancing, preparation, things like that, that I think have served me well, and I think are probably the best pieces of information that I can possibly pass along. So, and at any point, yeah, like Dave and Jason said, like if you have a question, like stop me, because I think it's better to address the question at the time. And I'm super interested to see if people have questions and what those questions might be. I'm fascinated by that. So let's get into it. So the production section, what I like to do first is just sort of check in with your body. Like, did you play a Bruckner symphony yesterday? Are you tight? Did you like move? Is your body physically sore? Like, what do I need to do to get tension out of my body? So just kind of scan your body, check your posture. The first thing I like to do, I like to take the slide off, outer slide. Put that somewhere I can find it later. This is a sort of an exercise that I learned at the Alessi seminar from John Whitaker. And I think buzzing the inner slide alone, like this might totally be a placebo, but I really don't care. Buzzing the slide makes me feel like I'm setting my first notes of the day up to be really successful and to sound really great. And I might be deluding myself, but I don't care. So what I like to do is just buzz some descending scales. I like to start around E flat, so I'll buzz and then you buzz back. And then descend. And then sometimes I like to add like some articulation or octave slurs. So just kind of play something a little bit more separated, a little more flexible. Then regain your outer slide. And these first couple of written exercises are from various Alessi warm-ups. These are all glissed. The idea here is I'm trying to just find the right relationship of buzz to air and just find the sweet spot and just sit in that sweet spot where the sound blooms. And this normally is normally a part of that is kind of setting the corners, making sure that the corners are set. I think a general issue is like lacking corners. So I like to have those established like right up front. So I'll play back. And now we're going to use the F attachment for this next one, the second and third bars. All right, so this next one is fairly similar. It's just sort of blowing a longer phrase. So I'm thinking of each bar is one interrupted long note. So just keep the air flowing and kind of find that focus. Then add the F attachment. Strictly speaking, I do a couple of other little exercises sometimes, but that would consider that the end of my warm-up. Lips should be responding, should feel like a little tingly maybe, that type of thing. So then I like to move on to articulation. That's the next thing I always do. And I always sort of stress articulation in general in my warm-up. I think that's something that I've seen in like the Alessi warm-up and various other warm-ups that seems to not really be there that much. Those seem to be flexibility-based warm-ups, which for me is not super helpful. I have this idea that if you create an effortless, beautiful articulation, a ping, like I'm assuming Jay Friedman talked about ping last week. It's just this idea where you're like hitting right in the sweet spot and the note responds and it's beautiful and it's effortless. That once you do that, that's like most of playing. Just creating a beautiful articulation, and then you kind of just stay, and then you have a beautiful sustain. That's the idea here with this Marsteller. The thing I like to think about during this, it's going to sound weird, it's dog training. I did this dog training course with my dog when I was in Bloomington, and the way this guy thought about his concept for training dogs was you give a dog a command, and then the dog carries out that command until you give the dog a new command. So you give a dog the command to sit, and the dog will sit indefinitely until you tell them to do something else. So that's the way I like to think about this particular Marsteller routine. Like, you tell yourself to create a beautiful articulation, and then you don't move. You don't change anything while you're sustaining the long tone. You just play the note and you get out of the way, and your body doesn't do anything other than continue air. So let's try that. I'm going to put on a metronome, I think, for this, just to keep things tight. So I'll play 2 bars and you play 2 bars. Yeah. So I should mention that another thing I'm thinking about, especially in this tone placement segment, is core. So I'm not sure how often you guys think about core, but I think as a second trombone player, core is like basically your job. So core is just like the center of the note, um, a ringing, free sound that's really easy to play with, really easy to hear. So I'm trying to develop that where I articulate and the core begins at the articulation and continues the entire way through the sustain. So I'm just trying to clone core. So also another way to look at this is like if you record yourself on Audacity, there are like the two colors of blue. There's the outside color of blue, and then there's like the inner color of blue, which is a visualization of core um, in my mind. So I'm just kind of visualizing trying to max that inner core to like the size of the entire blue sound wave, if that makes sense. So that's another thing I'm thinking about here. This next exercise for Marsteller,
Actually, Ryan, can I ask you a question?
please.
Okay, first question is may lead to a second one, but for example, when we're on F, are
Yeah.
you thinking that you're playing one note, or are you thinking that you're playing five notes?
Um, I'm thinking I'm playing five notes.
Okay, then follow-up question: is there a relationship between the end of one of the quarter notes and the beginning of the next quarter note, or are they two separate events?
I would say that they're separate events. What I'm concerned about right here is just like purely attack and tone placement. So I'm looking only at the beginning of the note and trying to get exactly what I want from the beginning of the note.
So you're not overly concerned with like the shape or the taper or doing anything specifically. It's just all thinking about the front side.
Yeah. And for me,
Makes
I
sense.
don't know if this is the same for everyone, but for me, if I get that front portion right, it informs the rest of the note. And it's hard to play a bad note shape or like some kind of like wiggle if you've set yourself up to have a really clear, effortless attack. So other people might be different. I know that works for me. I don't know why it works or if it's a universal truth, but that's what I've got going for this.
No
Uh,
worries. It's great to hear. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, sure. Um, so this next one, it's the same concept of just getting the front of the note, um, but now we're just expanding the range of doing that. So I'll just play this whole thing and then you can play it back, and then I'll show you little tweaks that I sometimes do to this. We're just focusing on core and ping. All right, cool. And then we don't all have to do this. I just want to show you a little like tweak that I like to do to this exercise. It's just expanding it down and then up an octave so that it covers 3 octaves every time. And it has a little bit of a funky start, but etc. Just so you're taking, the idea is to just as easily play those extra octaves in the same way that the original exercise feels. Just like here's the shelf, it goes here, and no effort goes into this whatsoever, and you're just replicating beautiful attacks in core. Um, so that's a little tweak I like to do. You can check that out if you're interested at some point. Next is, let's see, we have some Arban's first studies, and probably most of you have played these before. They're not super exciting. The thing I like to get out of this, they're not like super tuneful or interesting as like articulation studies so much, but what I like to try to do, I think I heard this from Massimo La Rosa maybe. Um, all of this is stolen, by the way, this entire thing. I've stolen musical ideas my whole career, and I advise you to do that as well. It's the only way as far as I know. But he had an idea of playing all these specific exercises rather than just in like a normal style. Try playing them as if Berlioz wrote them, or try playing them as if it's a Brahms chorale, or try playing them as if they're like the end of a Bruckner symphony, or just try to creatively apply musical intent to this exercise that's not very interesting. So you're working different parts of your brain. So let's try, let's just do number 11, and I'm just gonna think of something. You guys know the fourth movement of Mahler 1 has this really soft first trumpet and first trombone duet. Bum 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 beam bum bum. Very soft, very sustained, but very clear articulation. So let's try and do number 11 as if it's the end of Mahler 1, or not the end of Mahler 1, that part from Mahler 1. So maybe let's all play this together. I think that might be a good thing to do. So I'm thinking of this in 2. So boom, 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 boom. Nice and soft, nice and clear. Mahler 1, here we go. 1, 2, ready. Let's try the next one. Let's try number 12 as if it's sort of like a somber thing from like Brahms' German Requiem or something. Like sort of dirgy, soft attacks, thick sound, just sort of angsty, that type of thing. Bing, bum, 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 bing. So, 1, 2, ready. Yeah, so hopefully those sounded different. I think it's a fun thing to just plug into your warm-up is think like, hey, I'll try whatever. My wife is a really good trombone player, and sometimes I'll just shout across the room like, name a composer! And the last one she came up with was Hovannes. And I thought like, what's the trombone style of Hovannes? Like, try again. So, but I like to do that so that I'm not choosing something, and then you're having to think about different styles, classify them, and then recreate them, which I think is very useful. All right, we'll skip 13 because I'm out of composers. Let's go to Schlossburg. This is like, for me, this is the ping capital of the world, this exercise. So this is similar to the Marsteller earlier, except it's a little bit, the ping is turned up to 11 on this one. So I really do like trying to visualize being in a big hall, and each of these pings is hitting the back of the hall. And I'm trying to feel what the back of hall of the wall is feeling like when it's listening to these, and it should be like super clear from the back of the hall. So I'll play 3 bars and you play the 3 back at me here. next up is sort of, I think maybe one of the only scale studies that I've included here. This is one of my favorite sections of the Arban book. Just so many interesting ways to play scales. This one is accompanying yourself with a lower pedal, which I find to be fun, and has a little bit of a chromatic intro. So let's just try one of these. The thing I like to think about regarding this challenge is the balance between the top and bottom note. So right now the top note is the tune and the bottom note is the pedal. So a lot of times what people, or what you'll feel, what you think sounds even is the bottom note just splatting over and over again and overcoming the top note, which is the tune. So you want to counteract that. And I also like thinking about trying to play scales as if I were Glenn Gould. Hopefully you know who Glenn Gould is, and if you don't, you should go check him out, like playing some Bach. There's just an insane clarity to the way that he plays, and it's just astounding. And if we as trombone players could get anywhere near that, that would be awesome. So I think that's definitely something to strive for. That's what I'm striving for here. So I'll just play this first segment here the way that I would normally play it, and then you can try it and we can move on. Let's give that a shot. So if you wanted to work that up, I like playing at that speed just because I like thinking of this as like one long line where you try to sneak breaths, but it's all one melodic line. If you want to try it, you could try it without the pedal. And then later on try and add the pedal in. If that, sometimes playing the tune kind of clarifies where your priorities should be when you're playing an entire exercise. So sometimes that's helpful. But I think that's a really fun one to try and stay focused all the way through this long exercise. Replicating nice articulation. It's a good time to check out intonation. It's a good thing to record. So that's what I like to do there. So then this next section, phrasing and slurs. Yeah, the goal here is to very easily go between like any note. And I like to think of connecting the core of one note to the core of another note, so that you're not thinking of, trying to get the beginning of the first note and then the beginning of the next note. I like to look at it from the middle of the note to the next middle of the note and then just connect that. And then the phrasing idea is I want to be very clear about choosing my phrasing from a musical standpoint rather than a convenience of I'm about to run out of air standpoint. So trying to plan accordingly breathing wise so that my goal is a musical phrase and not just one of convenience. Because phrases of convenience are hardly ever, if at all, musical. So that's what I'm thinking about in the phrasing section of this. So these first exercises are from the Brad Edwards Lip Slur book, which hopefully you're familiar with. Fantastic book. Let's try a couple of these. So one tip that I should have mentioned before, so we have a pedal here just the same as we did the last exercise. So when I'm playing this B flat, this is one instance where I think this is all about the destination, not the journey. So when you're playing the B flat, you're thinking only of the D. And then you're playing the D and you're thinking only of going back to the B flat. So once you get there, you're thinking about the next note exclusively, because it's not gonna, unfortunately, it's not gonna fall out of the sky. Sometimes it might fall into your lap, but yeah, focus on the destination. So let's go on to B major here. And then one more maybe. Cool. Another thing I like to do with these is one of the hardest things I find that I have to do in the orchestra is play like a soft slurred chorale, where like nobody else is playing, and then it's just you the trombone section, has to play this very delicate thing. So I like to challenge myself, because this is sort of a good playground to figure out how to do that. Let's try the C version again, ascending, and play it as if it's like, you know, try and play it so soft that you're probably going to miss. But you want to live in that area where you can thread the needle when you're playing so softly from chord to chord. That's a really good skill to develop. So let's just give that a try once and try it softer. I think you'll learn a lot about yourself and your playing if you really test yourself like that with soft dynamics in your warm up. I think it's a hard thing to work on when you're just trying to work on the rep that you actually need it for. Because it's easy to develop some kind of like grudge against this piece or this specific lick. So it's nice to take something out of context and give it that you know, that soft stink. Let's do the descending version now. I always find this easier, and I always find this version really relaxing. So let's pop down to the second half of the page there. Yeah, great. That one's easier. I like doing that to kind of decompress from the ascending version. Let's jump ahead now. This next exercise, I don't think we need to really do. This is from a relatively new book to me. It's the Brad Edwards Patterns and Snippets, which is like my new favorite book. It's fantastic. It has all these like little musical snippets, I guess. And they're quick and they're interesting and they're in different keys. And what I like to do is I like to play them like while I'm watching TV or sports or what. Like I like watching basketball games, and then like when the ball is dead, I'll play through a bunch of these, and then when the commercials are on, I'm playing through a bunch of these, and I go back to the game, and then I'm fresh on both sides there, and that's a lot of my practice these days, unfortunately. Uh, so I like this one. I like the skill of slurring an octave is important to me. That's something that I can uh, that informs the rest of my playing. So I'll just play. Let's just try the first one of these. Um, and you're also introducing around the slurs different articulations, so that you're not strictly slurring, but there are articulations peppered in here. Let me give that a shot. All right, cool. These next studies are from studies for the slur. I think I had one from the tone studies in there, and I took it out. Um, these are great things to play. Nice pieces of music. Um, let's just do this first one, 14 here. And I like to think of this. This is incorporating slurs into style. So I like to think of this as like a Viennese waltz type of style, where it's really light and the slurs are bouncy. Um, Lots of articulation here, like if one of the Johann Strauss II wrote this for in the middle of some kind of waltz or something. So um, I'm not sure if we should play this together. Maybe I'll play this really fast and then you can play it back. But just try and do a lot of style. Do more style than you think is coming through. So give that a go.
It's a nice one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's got some nice style.
That's good. You said this is from Arban's, right?
Yeah, studies for the slur. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Tone studies are also great. There are nice, like really nice musical things in there, sprinkled in between the really hard exercises. Worth seeking out. This next one, I'm convinced is actually the hardest thing in the Arban's book to play. We won't do that now, but check that out later. Trying to pull off these phrases is like really challenging. It's a phrasing challenge in addition to a slurring challenge. So check that out sometime if you're into that. And then the last thing I want to do are some of these Mulcahy slurs. I think these are I do play one or another of these versions every day just to kind of cover the full range of the tenor trombone and plus more. Um, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with these types of things, but these are all things that I sort of transcribed from lessons with Mick Mulcahy, where this would be our warm up, and he would just play, and I would have to figure out what he just played and play it back at him, which is terrifying. So maybe some of you have had that experience. I think it's the best way to learn, honestly, is being thrown into the deep end and trying to figure out what is going on and how can I reproduce this thing that he just did. I think that's really valuable. And I actually really thought hard about giving the music out for this because I think the struggle is so important. And it's important to incorporate struggle into your warm ups and into your playing. Otherwise, you'll just always be comfortable and in the same spot. So let's give these a try. I'll play a bar, and then you play the bar back, and go as far as you can, and I'll go as far as I can. So now the pattern changes and we have C's and G's all the way up. Sorry, I should have moved that for you. Cool, so that's the idea for the slurs. I just want to explain the next articulated sections for these two sets of Mulcahy exercises. I've written staccatos underneath slurs, which is always confusing, I know. What I mean by that is that these are a very hard legato tongue and all phrased. So you're not taking a breath until you finish the phrase. So the example of the style here would be so you're just kind of playing what a string player might refer to as offish, if you've ever heard that before. So there is a slight separation maybe, but it's just a very hard legato tongue. I don't think we should go through with this on your own if you want. If you want to like contact me and I can play it with you, that'd be cool. But all of the rest of these are the same way. The second half of this Mulcahy Slurs 2 is the same type of thing, just slower. So that just indicates that it's all one breath, and yet there's separation between the notes. So. So basically, it's a torture device to make sure that the mouthpiece is staying on your face, and you have to figure out how to make it happen. So that's the idea there. So I think that's sort of, unless anybody has any questions about the warm-up, that sort of concludes my prepared warm-up thing. I don't, going through both of these entire Mulcahy exercises is like pretty tiring, and I don't normally do both of them in a day. I like to kind of go back and forth. I'll do one day and two the next day, that type of thing. So let me see how I can figure out how to stop sharing this screen. There we go. Okay, and then for the rest of this, I just have a couple of thoughts on on preparation for gigs or for whatever performances you have. I think one thing that has helped me be successful in the music world is just preparation, like insane detailed preparation. And none of this is very sexy, but I promise you, if you do it, the benefits are massive. So preparation, every time I go to the orchestra, I try to be more prepared and more, had done more score study, more listening. I want to be more prepared than the music director. I want to know what everybody's doing all the time. I want to know every time I play, what chord is the low brass playing? What member am I in that chord? What do I need to do to that note to make the whole thing work? I know it sounds boring, but get a score. There's IMSLP. Like nobody's. If you're playing a band piece at Morehead State University, my alma mater, hey Morehead people. Nobody is gonna be like stingy about letting you see the score. These things are not secret. I think they'll be excited that you're asking for the score. Seriously. So look at the score. Listen to recordings, listen to multiple recordings with the score, not with your part. Develop the skill of score reading while you're listening to something. Check out what the violins are doing. Notice, hey, look, I have this with the cellos. Maybe I should listen to the cellos when I'm playing this. Or I'm playing this trio with a clarinet and a horn. Name that excerpt. But so my general goal is I'm shooting for the very first rehearsal to be like my final performance. So I show up, I have all this preparation, and that both frees me up to listen to what's going on around me and fit in. I've obviously developed ideas through the score study and listening process, but you can't just go force your idea upon an orchestra. It's sort of a meet in the middle type of thing. But if you've done this work, you have all this like mind space freed up to think musical thoughts. Like, what am I going to do here musically? What's the orchestra doing here? Who's breathing where? Like these types of things. Another baby step version of this, which I also do, is playing along with recordings. So find a recording that you like and play along with it. And then at the first rehearsal, you'll at least know how it goes, where your parts fit in. You'll find out if there are any landmines in the piece before you embarrass yourself in front of other humans. And it's a good step. Be aware of the recordings you're listening to. It's not always the best to listen to, for instance, like, I don't know, I don't want to impugn anyone. Like, just be mindful of like what part of the country, what part of the world plays Bruckner well. Maybe I should listen to an Austrian orchestra or a German orchestra. Maybe I shouldn't listen to, or maybe I should take what an American orchestra does with a grain of salt there. This is a good way to learn style. This is maybe the only way to learn style. Yeah, Bernstein. This is exactly what I was thinking. Like some of that Bernstein doesn't swing, man. So that's basically my idea for preparation. And it sounds like a lot, but you'll feel so much better and so much less focused on yourself. You'll feel less anxious if you're that prepared. Because you're focusing on a positive, you're focusing on a product that you want. So rather than trying to focus on a negative, you know. So that's been such a positive thing for me, and it's never a bad thing to be the most prepared person in the room. It never is, and you learn more that way.
Can I jump in with a question on that?
Yeah.
Because I'm it's really good points. I'm totally on board with all that. I've often had a hard time when it comes to preparing like opera, because it's just so much more material and it's so much longer, and also the recordings are so much denser. I mean, have you found any thoughts on that, or any ways to streamline that process? Because it seems like it takes like 5 times as long to do this, that, yeah.
So what I would say for that, I would make a distinction between I'm contracted and I'm playing an opera. Then I would do the score study for the whole opera. The last one I did was Salome by Strauss, which is like an insane opera that so much is going on. I mean, it's just like head spinning, all the stuff that's going on in the opera. So you kind of have to do some score study. If it's for like an opera orchestra audition, that's harder, man. I'm not gonna score study the whole like Magic Flute for yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I might check out that's where I might check out just the excerpt. I'll still try and find a bunch of different recordings. I know it's harder to drop the needle right where the trombone excerpt is. That's not going to happen. But I still think it's worth doing. It's just a little bit more complicated. But yeah, I see your point. Operas are long. Am I on page 573 of the score or 673? I don't know.
Yeah, there's also a lot more operas in the wrong place too. like a lot of these, like Bohème, or a lot of the, well, not Bohème, we played that before. Like a lot of the Italian stuff, it's just like tacit, and then you're in, So yeah, okay, cool, thanks.
Sure. Yeah, that's tough. But I mean, I think you're rewarded even more in opera if you do that, just because there's so much there, like in the great opera lit. There's so much there to be discovered. So yeah, it's great. Any other questions on the preparation before I move on to my last little thing here? No? All right. Then the other thing, the last thing is just, I don't know how to develop this thought exactly, but I think a key part of being a successful musician is cultivating awareness. So awareness of where you fit in the group that you're in, awareness of what other people are playing, awareness like you're sitting in a rehearsal and you're not on your phone, these types of things, because these are all moments where you can learn a lot. Like most of my musical ideas have been stolen while I've been taciting an orchestra. I'll hear an oboe player play a phrase and think like, that's better than anything I'm doing. I'm going to take it. Or, same thing for a trumpet player or a violinist. Like, there's no reason that we as trombonists can't make these high quality musical phrases that others are, So, and even in other trombone players, like, I know a bunch of you guys, I've stolen stuff from every single one of you. Like, if you do something better than me, I'm going to take it. I'm going to figure out how you do it. I might ask you how you do it. There's no shame here. Like, everybody does something well, and everybody has something to teach someone else. So just be on the lookout for something that somebody does really well, and try it, do it, steal it, ask them how they do it. That's the quickest way to get better that I know of. And then along with awareness, I think when you're coming into a situation like I was with the ISO, you really need to, part of your awareness is, how can I make these people sound better? What can I do personally to make these guys' lives easier? And the answer is usually preparation, playing with a good sound, good core, good intonation, being a easy person to be around. That's sort of like listening without having to be told what you're doing. First trombone, first trumpet are playing something with a different articulation, you figure it out right away and match. And people really respond to that. They really do. They're not looking for someone to make their life harder. They're looking for somebody to simplify their life. And if you can simplify their life, then they'll be very grateful. And then I just have one last little tip that I want to throw in here. And I know a couple of you guys probably have an idea of the person who created this tip for me. There's a very good orchestra that I used to be a member of. who had a very good conductor. It's a great orchestra, great people. I miss these people very much. It was a great orchestra to play in. The conductor of this orchestra had a bit of a sort of like an attention disorder, maybe. He was very focused on people looking at him all the time. And so I developed this skill of anytime I had a solo or anytime I had any like entrance that he might be looking at me, I was already looking at him, dead in the eyes. And conductors love this. They love that you can play your part, and they love especially that you're looking at them. And this sounds like a dumb trick, but it works on every level. Like every conductor I've ever played for, like if you, I remember starting, there's like a little thing in Brahms 2 at the end where second trombone starts this little chorale. And there's a famous conductor, and I just was like locked on, and I played it. And they just they're so happy when you do this, which makes your life so much better because they're basically your boss. They are your boss. So make your boss happy, make your the people you're working with happy. That's all I got. Let me know if you have any questions.
That's great. Thank you so much for this. This is awesome.
Yeah. Anybody, I haven't looked at the chat at all. Are there any questions in here?
It's mainly just me goofing around. I try to get other people on board, but everyone's so focused on your stuff because you're laying it down, man.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Well, let me know if you have any questions. If you want to get in touch and play really hard slurs with me or whatever, like let me know.
Ryan, I actually have a question. More about some of the playing stuff. Like when we got to the Mulcahy slurs at the end, and we were, kind of going up several octaves. I personally find that if I start high and go low, my face works a certain way. If I start low and go high up to those same notes, like the way that I play like an F or a G or whatever, above the staff, it's a very different setup. Like if I start in my pedal range and kind of go up.
Sure.
Now, I've noticed over the past several years that, like, let's say there's like an A version and a B version, like they kind of are getting closer to one another just because I'm practicing regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But is that anything that you've thought about or tried to like, will that into more of a consistent thing? Or like, is that on your radar, or is that just like a natural byproduct of playing such a large range? What's your experience with that?
It's on my radar. The whole idea there is like none of this is comfortable, and you got to make it happen. And you don't force it exactly, but my thinking is if I see somebody playing something, even if it's Mulcahy, I think like he can do it, so can I. So I'm gonna figure it out. I know it's not easy for him. I know it's not easy for anybody, but the challenge is still there. And like in smaller instances in the orchestra, like nobody cares how hard it is for me to triple tongue, like when I'm playing Star Wars or something. Like it doesn't matter. Like you just have to make it. You have to figure it out and develop it. I think more to your point, the second set of slurs sort of inverts these difficult slurs. So that might be a way to within the exercise address that more clearly. So like if you want to take the way that you're slurring down and apply it to the way you're slurring up, maybe you start descending and try and match the sound going up. I don't know. But it's the type of thing that like, yeah, I don't know. I always have things that I'm very uncomfortable with in my playing, and then the best case scenario is you let somebody know that and they're like, oh, I never knew that. It sounds fine. Which is like normally the response, because I think it's, I think it turns into a psychological thing after a while, I don't know if I addressed anything that you just asked, really.
Oh no, we're all dealing with a different like physical and mental and emotional setup, like when we kind of go into this. So just to hear your thoughts on how you're viewing it or how you experience it is totally helpful. I rarely am looking for the magic answer from someone, but just to get their perspective kind of enriches my own. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, nothing sexy there either. It's just like, I don't know. Just gotta make it happen. I got no better advice than that. Anybody else? Any questions?
Yeah, a quick one, hopefully. Can you still hear me? I'm on my phone today for some.
Yeah, I got you.
You were talking about preparation for performance and things like that. Has it ever got to you for a point where you've become so prepared that a conductor has thrown something from left field that has become difficult to work with because of your preparation, where it's just so different from what you feel that should be happening at a point or at that time?
I think my answer is all the time. There are things that I would prefer to play in a way, and then somebody else isn't doing that, and it's not my call, and I can't play it that way. I think maybe earlier on when I started doing this type of preparation, I was a little bit more rigid in how I could play it, because I was so married to like a recording or an idea. But you can kind of go around that by listening to 5 different recordings that are very different, or something like that. So, but my main point is, when you're in that situation and you have prepared to that extent, this is just a minor tweak at that point, and it doesn't bother you, and you have enough mind space to take care of that, no problem, at least in my experience. So yeah, I don't think it's ever hurt, hopefully. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it's something that I think comes up. I work in Germany, and American music for me, I mean, I'm Australian, not American, but every time we have Bernstein, I have to prepare in such a different way to that I want to.
Right.
Because I know how our section's going to play. I know how our lead trumpet's going to play next to me, and I know how our conductor's going to want it. And yeah, the frustration that your preparation and the performance are so far apart.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but that's a part of for
part
me,
of work.
action player. Yeah, it's you still get paid, thankfully. But yeah, that's just part of it. And then sometimes you do get to make the call, and that's fantastic. But yeah,
I almost wonder if there's a real difference between, like, if you have a mindset of like, I'm going to prepare this so I know how it goes, and another mindset might be like, I'm going to prepare this so I can handle anything that comes my way, almost like that's the game. Like, I'm going to start my preparation in the mindset of, I'm about to play this game where they're going to throw gotchas at me, and I need to be prepared for those. So it's it's more of like a mental flexibility exercise as opposed to a declarative knowledge exercise. Because I know for me, because I've had some conductors where it's like, yeah, curveballs all day long, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. But then when I kind of adopted more of a, it's my job to just be ready for curveballs as opposed to learn this. I feel like a conductor's job might be like, this is how it goes, because they kind of need to lay it down in that way for everybody. And maybe a lead trumpet player or a principal oboe or a concertmaster, something like that. But I know as a bass trombonist, like I like, we're in the same boat, Ryan. Like, I don't make any of those decisions.
not making any calls.
I got 8 bosses, Bob. So I don't know. So I found that has helped me over the time.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction. Preparing so that you can handle anything that comes at you, and then people who have regular sections that they play with, like you already know how that's going to go, right? So you can kind of factor that into your preparation and say, like, well, I know this guy's going to do this, and I'm going to have to do this, and so I'm going to prepare for that. It's not my choice, not my favorite, but it's coming, so you can prepare for it. So yeah.
Well, Ryan, this has been fantastic. Can't thank you enough for sharing with us, and just great ideas. And And I met, if you want to call this the, kleptobone studies, like I don't think that name has been taken yet, and I think it's fine. But it's just really great, and we've all played Arban and we've all played long tones and we've all played scales and articulations. But I think every time that somebody joins us and offers their perspective, like I learn something new just because they approach it in a different way. They use different words. They have a different priority. They have different creative ways of going through it. And that's exactly what you've shared with us today. So thank you so much for all of your insight and your experience. It's wonderful to, experience it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Sweet. Well, thanks everybody for coming. If you, Ryan, are you okay if I were to send out your packet to the list, like the master list, or do you want me just to kind of leave it with the people here?
Yeah, the master list is fine. Yeah, just don't tell any of the publishing companies whose stuff I stole. Okay.
It's fine. It's just our horde of trombonists. We'll keep it just our secret. But what I'll do is I'll send it out to the list. So, for those of you that are working with other people, and maybe you want to say, hey, this session, we're going to publish it on YouTube. So that'll be